Hello Algebra, welcome to lesson 4.3, starting on page 97 and going through 99. The title of this lesson is self-explanatory, problem solving involving quadratic equations. We will be putting to practical use solving the quadratic equations that we learned how to do in the previous two lessons. So first of all, for notes today, here are the steps to do problem solving involving quadratic equations. Number one, you identify and use a letter such as X to represent the unknown quantity to be found in a problem. So whatever they want you to find, whatever the answer is going to be, that will be your X. Then you look and express other quantities within that problem in the terms of X. So whatever you're finding, you have to write quantities, express them in terms of X from the given information. Once you have those things, you will form a quadratic equation based on the given information in the problem. So that would be in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. Then we'll solve the equation by making that equal to 0. Now remember, and then you'll write down your answer statement, so it will be one number or the other. At this point, you need to go back, reread the problem, and check to see whether the solutions or one of them will satisfy the condition in the original problem. If the original problem requires a whole number solution, a positive whole number, positive fraction, a positive number, we will need to reject the negative roots and fractional roots. So you have to have your answer make sense, be real in what they are asking you to solve. With all of this in mind, after you have these written down, reread them, and then we'll proceed to try it 19 on page 98. Okay, just gotta make this a little bit, I think we're all in there. Okay, so try it 9. First of all says, the sum of the squares of two consecutive positive odd numbers is 394. Find the numbers. So the sum, when you add these two numbers together, so the sum of the squares, so these numbers will also be squared. The numbers will be consecutive, but they will be consecutive positive odd numbers. And then when you do all that, it will total 394, and we got to find those numbers. So starting, we're going to let X be the smaller number. Then the consecutive odd number will be X plus 2. Remember, an odd skips the next one, so that's why we get X plus 2. Now we're going to take and put this into the wording of the problem. So it's the sum, or adding, the squares of these two numbers, X squared plus X plus 2 squared, is going to total 394. I need to switch this into a quadratic equation. So to do this, I'm going to actually square X plus 2 squared. And I'm choosing to do it the distributive way, but this does follow a pattern if you care to look that up. Anyway, I'm going to take X and distribute it to the X plus 2. I'm going to take the positive 2 and also distribute it to the X plus 2. X squared just stays there. When I do this, I have another X squared plus 2X plus 2X plus 4 equals 394. I do some combining. I combine my X squared. I have 2X squared. I combine my X's, which is 4X plus 4 is 394. I'm going to now make this equal to 0. So I bring my 394 over by subtracting it. I have 2x squared plus 4x minus 390 equals 0. I have to remember, if I want to work with lower numbers, which makes things lots simpler, I can reduce this by 2, because they're all even numbers. So that makes 2x squared x squared. Divide through by 2 here, I have 2x. I divide through by 2 here, I have 195. So it's kind of like as low as it will go. Now I'm going to use my cross multiplication with the x squared and the negative 195 and the 2x. I think of all the factors of 195. At this point, because it's big, I would use my calculator, keeping in mind that if I'm going to get a product of a negative number, I'm going to have one positive and one negative. And then the two factors have to only be apart by 2, so there's a difference of 2. So I'm going to work through with my calculator. I know 1 and 195, that's too big of a span. That's a difference of a negative 194. That doesn't work. I need a positive difference. So I keep working through all of those possibilities. I keep in mind, as I write out my factors, this is divisible by 5, and I work through my factors. I come to what I think in my factors is a spread of 2. I just have to make the lower one negative in order to get a negative here. So I end up with 15 and negative 13. This is a positive use of your calculator in this lesson, because you're going to have some big numbers, and you're going to have to figure out the factors, and you're going to have to work those factors to fit in that cross multiplication. So lining them up, it doesn't really matter because these are both x's at this point. So that's a nice thing when these two numbers, these two factors are the same. It really doesn't matter where you put the factors that would multiply together and equal negative 195. We end up with 15x and negative 13x, and putting them together, I have my difference of 2x. Then I go across, I have x plus 15 and x minus 13 is 0. And I solve it out. X is negative 15 and x is 13. Going back to the original statement in the book, it says the sum of the squares of two consecutive positive odd numbers. Therefore, I have to reject 15. Therefore, my lower number is 13. My higher number is 13 plus 2, which is 15. Just happens to be the positive version of that. It doesn't always work that way. So I can't just take whatever this is and make it positive. I actually got to go back and plug it into those quantities that I had decided up at the top. Notice the steps. In your work, I will be looking for how you name them. Name the main one and name everything else in terms of x that you can. Setting up the problem according to the wording in the problem. Then working that into a quadratic equation. Look at the steps that took. Remembering to reduce if you can to make your numbers low enough. Using your calculator to make this work is perfectly fine. I don't need to see that, but you do need to think this out in your head. If writing this down helps, please do it. Then when you get down to this part, it's easy. But then when you have your two choices, you got to go back to the problem in the book, which says they are positive, so you got to reject this. Write this down. Negative 15 is rejected. Therefore, it's 13, and you got to go back and see the consecutive odd number up here. 13 plus 2 is 5. That is so simple. I'm not going to write that down, but that is how you arrive at the answer. I need to see this thinking in order to give you full credit for your workbook pages today. And of course, on the quiz, which will be coming up on Friday, you will need this to get full credit for your answer also. Moving on to try it number 10. This deals with area and perimeter and things like that, measurement. So let's see what they have for us. First of all, I'm going to line this up, and I got to make it just a little bit narrower so it can all be seen. There, that's as good as I can get. Okay, so try 10 reads. The perimeter of a rectangle is 44 centimeters. So that tells me 2 lengths and 2 widths is 44 centimeters. The area of the rectangle is 117 centimeters. So the length and the length times the width is 117. Find the length of the shorter side of the rectangle. Now I know they're not all equal because they said shorter side. So the length of the shorter size is X centimeters. That should be side, not size. And the length of the longer side is, well, I'm going to take 44, which is the perimeter, minus 2 of the shorter sides, and then divide what's left over by 2 because there's 2 lengths. So there's 2 widths and 2 lengths, but this is what I'm going to do. So basically I divide this by 2 and that by 2. I end up with 22 minus X centimeters is the length of the longer side. So that kind of bothers me here. I'm going to change my Z into a D. There you go. All right. Going over this one more time in terms of X. The perimeter is 44. Remember, the perimeter is 2 of the shorter sides. So I take the perimeter, subtract the 2 shorter sides, then I'm left with both of the longer sides. So I'd have to divide it by 2 to get 1 of the longer sides. So that's how I ended up with 22 minus X centimeters for the longer side. The area of this rectangle is 117. So now I have all of my information, and I can go ahead and set things up as I'm trying to find the length of the shorter side of the rectangle. So I'm going to use area because that's what they give me to work from. So my shorter side times my longer side. X times 22 minus 7, or excuse me, X is 117. I am going to distribute my X. So I have 22X minus X squared is 117. I bring my 117 to the other side. 22X minus X squared minus 117. I'm going to get this in proper order, and I don't want a negative X squared, so I'm flipping all my signs as I do that. So X squared minus 22X plus 117 equals 0. I put it in my grid. Now again, factors of 177 you may do on your calculator. And I know this ends up to be not a prime number because 1 plus 7 is 15. That's divisible by 3. So I can start off with 3 times something. But keeping in mind, both have to be actually negative because you need a positive, and they both have to be negative because this totals to be a negative number. So negative times a negative is the positive. To get a negative sum, I need both to be negative in this case. So working it out, I end up with negative 13 and negative 9. So there I go. So again, because they're both X, it doesn't really matter where they end up, but so I do my crosses. I have negative 13X, negative 9X. I add them together, negative 22X. All works out. X minus 13 times X minus 9 is 0. I work them out to the natural conclusion. So X is either going to be 13 or 9. Now in this case, they're both positive numbers. Either one could work. I'm going to try the smaller one first because when X is 9, going back up here, 22 minus X is going to be the longer side. So 22 minus 9 is 13. So this works out. This is shorter, this is longer. Let me try the 13. When X is 13, I go 22 minus 13 is 9. This is supposed to be shorter, this is definitely not longer. Therefore, I reject this, and I take 9 as my answer. Therefore, the shorter side is 9 centimeters. So you always got to decide which one is going to make sense in the situation described in the problem. Again, look at the steps, look what you have to identify, work out, think through, use your calculator to get near that, and then, of course, work it out to the natural conclusion, and then decide which one truly answers the question and why. Don't forget to go back and plug X into one of those other things that you put in terms of X to help make you that decision. Help you make that decision. Okay, continuing with our last example, try it 11, the top of 99. It says a rectangular swimming pool measures 25 by 6 meters. It is surrounded by a path of uniform width. If the area of the path is 102 meters squared, find the width of the path. So that's telling me what X is. The width of the path is going to be X meters. Let 2X show the path on each side of the length and the width of the pool. So remember, you have a pool, and then you have a path around it. Therefore, you have an X here and an X here. That's a 2X. You have an X here and an X here. That's also 2 of the X's. That's where we get 2X showing the width on each side of the pool. Using this information, the area of the path and the pool together would be, you would take 25 plus the 2X times 6 plus the 2X. So I go ahead and I am going to distribute the 25 to the 6 plus 2X and then the positive 2X to the 6 plus 2X. Doing that, I have 150 plus 50X plus 12X plus 4X squared. I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm going to combine my X's and have 62X in the middle. So at this point, I'm going to put it in the right order. 4X squared plus 62X plus 150 meters squared. That would be the area, the combined area of both the path and the pool. Now the area of the pool, just the pool, is 25 times 6. So that's 150 meters squared. I don't need the area of the pool. Okay, so the area of the path, of course, is 102 meters squared. And right now, I'm going to take the combined area and subtract the area of the pool, because like I said, we don't need it. We just want to get down to the area of the path. So I have this whole quadratic equation minus the area of the pool is going to equal the area of the path, which is 102. So basically that eliminates the 150, so I'm left with 4X squared plus 62X equals 102. I'm going to reduce this by 2. You can reduce it by 2 at any point, but so in one problem, I did it when it was in this state, and now I'm doing it in this time, but I can reduce it by 2. So that becomes 2X squared plus 31X equals 51. I bring my 51 onto the other side. I have 2X squared plus 31X minus 5, or 51, equals 0. I set up my cross factorization chart. Here I'm going to think factors of negative 51 are going to be 1 negative and 1 positive to get that negative 51. And the positive is going to need to be higher because I have a positive 31X. Trial and error using my calculator, I come up with 17 and negative 3. Now that doesn't automatically equal 31X, but remember I have to have one of them doubled. So if I double my 17, that gives me 34X, and this is a negative 3x, and that works out to 31x. So when they're doubled, you have to double one of these factors to make it work out here. And you've probably figured that out in previous lessons. So I'm left with this right here, 2x minus 3 and x plus 17. I have to even turn the page, keep up with the work. So again, 2x minus 3 times x plus 17 equals 0. I work it out. This becomes 3.5 or 1.5. I'm going to tell you about the 1.5 in a minute. And this becomes a negative 17. I cannot have a negative length or width. So I just reject this right off the bat. I don't have to plug it into anything. Therefore, the width of the path is 1.5 meters. Now, the reason I chose 1.5 is because you rarely say the width of the path is 3/2 meters. We don't talk that way. We don't measure that way. In this case, because it's a measurement, we actually take that improper fraction and turn it into a decimal, which is 1.5. Okay. There's the logic, there's the thinking, there are all the steps. Do good math. This is going to be some thinking. The first set of problems are pretty straightforward, with one little more challenging one. So please take a look at 99 for your lesson. You're going to be doing numbers 1 through 6. Go right to 6. If it is not done in your book, please do so now and underline the second sentence, which reads, the number is 14 greater than the product of the digits. The wording of that sentence is backwards. So you have to think it forward in your brain to help you get going on number 6. That is my tip for right now. So thank you and do good math. Ask questions if you need to.